Welcome. We're here to break down India's latest labor force numbers for the July to September quarter. Now, if you're studying for exams, these are the trends and data points you absolutely need to get a handle on. We're going to make it super simple and clear. Okay, before we even touch the headline numbers, we have to build a solid foundation. Let's get on the same page and master 3 critical definitions. I promise, once you nail these, the rest of the data will make perfect sense. First up, we have the labor force participation rate, or LFPR. Think of this as the big picture. It's the slice of the working age population that's economically active. So that's everyone who's either got a job or is out there pounding the pavement looking for one. Next, there's the WPR, the worker population ratio. Now, this one's a lot more specific. It zeroes in on just the percentage of the working age population that is actually employed right now. Simple as that. It doesn't count the people who are still looking for work. And finally, the big one, the unemployment rate, or UR. Now listen up, because this is the crucial part. This is not a percentage of the total population. It's the percentage of people within the labor force, that active group we just talked about, who don't have a job but are available and actively trying to find one. So how on earth do you keep these straight in an exam? Try this little trick. Labor participates, workers produce, and unemployment reduces the workforce. LP, WP, UR. Got it? Simple, right? All right, now that we've got the lingo down, let's actually use it to decode this latest data. So, what are the major headlines for this quarter? Well, to understand where we are, it helps to know where we were. Just last quarter, the overall unemployment rate was sitting at 5.4%. But the big story in this new report is that the rate has actually come down. As you can see, it's now at 5.2%. And that, of course, is a really positive signal for the economy. And it's not just the unemployment rate looking better. We're also seeing these small but definitely positive upticks in both the labor force participation rate and the worker population ratio. So in simple terms, this suggests that not only are more people getting into the game and looking for work, but more of them are actually finding it. But here's where it gets really interesting. Who is actually driving this increase in participation? When we dig into the numbers, one group really stands out. And honestly, it's one of the most important trends in the entire report. The data clearly shows that the rise in female labor force participation just keeps going. It's now hit 33.7% for women aged 15 and up. This means more and more women are actively engaging with the job market. And when we break this down, wow, the picture becomes crystal clear. This growth isn't happening evenly. You can see the rate for urban women basically held steady, but the participation rate for rural women jumped a lot. Pretty much the entire national increase is being powered by women in rural India. You know, this rural-urban split is a theme that just keeps popping up. When we look at unemployment, that national average of 5.2%, well, it doesn't tell the whole story. In fact, it's kind of hiding 2 completely different trends happening in rural and urban India. And here is that divergence. Just look at this. While unemployment fell quite a bit in rural areas, dropping down to 4.4%, it actually crept up in urban centers for both men and women. It really is a tale of 2 different economic realities. So to help lock this crucial trend in your memory for exams, here's another quick mnemonic for you. Think rural relief because their unemployment rate is falling, and urban unrest since their rate is ticking up. Okay, so for the people who do have jobs, let's peel back another layer. Where are they working and what kind of work are they doing? The structure of employment is just as important as the headline numbers. No huge surprises here. In rural India, agriculture is still king. It makes up a massive 57.7% of the workforce. Now, the report does mention this is partly because of seasonal activity related to the kharif crops. You know, the big monsoon season crops like rice and maize. But then you flip over to urban India, and it is a completely different world. Here, it's all about the tertiary sector, or services. That's the primary employer, engaging a whopping 62% of the urban workforce, a totally different economic engine. And it's not just what they do, but how they're employed that differs so much. In rural areas, self-employment is the main game in town, and it's growing. Meanwhile, in the cities, it's regular salaried employment that saw a little bit of growth, now making up almost half of all jobs. Okay, deep breath. Let's pull all of this together. We're going to do a rapid-fire revision of the most important takeaways from this report. These are the key numbers and trends you'll want to have on lock. First, the big numbers. The overall unemployment rate, down to 5.2%. The labor force participation rate and the worker population ratio both nudged up slightly to 55.1% and 52.2% respectively. And remember the key driver for that participation growth? Women in rural India, with their rate climbing to 37.5%. But the biggest theme here is that divergence. You have to remember the split. Rural unemployment is falling to 4.4%, while urban unemployment is ticking up. The structure of work is also split. Agriculture dominates rural areas, services dominate urban centers. And finally, rural life is defined by self-employment, while cities depend more on salary jobs. And all of this leaves us with a really critical question, doesn't it? The data is clearly showing two very different labor markets operating side by side in India. So as the economy evolves, the biggest question is whether this gap between the rural and urban workforce is going to get even wider, or if these two tracks will finally start to converge. That's the key thing to watch going forward.